Welcome to the Wellness Rebel Show, where you reclaim your health and tap into your body's healing power. I'm your host, Fatima, here to empower you with the knowledge and tools to take charge of your well-being. Whether you want to boost energy, improve mindset, or unlock vitality, this is your go-to source for practical advice and inspiration. It's time to step into your power and live a life of health and freedom. Welcome to the revolution. Hello, everyone. Today I have Dr. Devin Vrana. Sorry about that. I literally just murdered your name immediately. All right.
It happens a lot.
So Dr. Devin is a chiropractor, and I found her on Instagram back in 2020, and it was from a meme, I'm sure. And I just loved it because I was also, in that like same thinking that the whole thing was a pandemic and whatnot. And I just love finding other people who are on the same page and we're able to see through all the, the lies and whatnot. So now that I'm launching my podcast, I'm so excited for her to be here and share all about her passions, and because I can also really tell how passionate you are in helping people heal, activate the healing power of their bodies. And that's what we're here for, right? We're here, we want to be this collective of healers helping others activate and know that their bodies can heal. No one else can heal you, it's your body, but you do sometimes need somebody like to guide you or help set the stage for the healing. Welcome, Dr. Devin.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we're gonna dive right in. I'm gonna do some questions real quick. So, how did you get into the holistic wellness space? Like,
Yeah,
was there any? Go ahead.
I think since I was a little girl, I was always playing waitress or doctor. I loved, just taking care of people from a really young age and knew I wanted to go into something in healthcare. I came up pretty close to graduation and I was taking MCAT and entrance exams for dentistry and just feeling out different options and started shadowing. Couldn't really find anybody that loved their job, which was kind of a red flag of what am I getting myself? And I don't, you know, my mom and dad would joke that whenever they would try to give me even the Flintstones vitamins back in the day or antibiotics, I would hide the pills in a shoebox under my bed because I just hated taking medicine. And so I'm coming up on graduation. I got to make a decision. And fate would have it. I was bartending at the time, worked this big party that this chiropractor was there. And he told me what school he went to. I looked online that night. They had a discovery day. I mean, it literally felt like hand of God because the door just opened. I went to the chiropractic school and heard this philosophy of the power that made the body heals the body, and that flow from above down, inside out heals. And it was all these things that's like, this is everything I think that I've never had words for. And I called my mom and I'm like, I'm going to be a chiropractor. She was like, Devin, you have never been to a chiropractor. I was like, I know, but this is it. Like, these are my people. And she's like, well, how long's the program? How much does it cost? I was like, I don't know. I mean, literally, it was the first morning that I was just like, this is it. This is what I've looked for. And at every phase of, since then, I've trained in pediatric and prenatal chiropractic specifically, and acupuncture and different neuro-emotional techniques and kinesiology. And, they're all different roadmaps that have the same major premise that, exactly like you said, healing can only happen from the inside out. And I help, people remember. I help them trust the power that they have. I help lead them back home to the thing that they've always had and will always have. And yeah, I love it. I love it, clearly.
Yeah, that sounds so beautiful. And clearly, it was meant to be.
Mm.
I myself love getting chiropractic care, but I actually started going to a chiropractor before I had my first baby, just because to help with, like
Yeah.
hip pain and whatnot. And then my babies had their, you know, chiropractic adjustments,
Mhm.
craniosacral therapy and whatnot. But now that we live in the middle of nowhere, it's been harder to
Yeah.
go. But yeah, to me, it's a beautiful addition to, whatever healing modality we're using. Because I'm sure you also like, I'm sure you don't like, right? It's like it's not only just chiropractic, right? It has to be kind of like the whole body,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and that's where the big idea came from. For me, chiropractic is, I think when people hear chiropractic, they think adjustment. So
Yeah.
you think the physical act of chiropractic, which is the adjustment, to typically the spine to free up the nerve flow between brain and body. And chiropractic to me is the adjustment, but it's the lifestyle. And there's a poem written early on called "The Big Idea," which is where all that comes from for us. And it's that like power within premise. And so whether it's my kids or it's me or in the practice, our number one goal is to like root into, if I'm having a symptom, if I'm having a pain, if I'm having, whatever, it's the body's innate, natural, intelligent response. And I want to respond, not react and turn it off. And so the adjustment is how chiropractic application integrates it. But to me, it's this whole mentality, it's this dance of understanding what your body's doing and how you can optimize its function, and how your choices might do the opposite, like either I'm dimming my light or I'm helping it shine, right?
Yeah. So what does it look like when a patient or a client comes to you for, like for helping with any symptoms or
Yeah.
whatever they're feeling?
You know, it's two things usually drive people into our office. So, my husband is a chiropractor. We have separate clinics. We started together. We always joke that we wanted to stay married. So, we have his and her offices because you walk in and we have totally different vibes. So, he has his office. And then the two doctors that I practice with are my brother and sister. So, we
Okay.
literally went from a family that had never seen a chiropractor to the whole family. And now my oldest son is on a trajectory to become a chiropractor as well. And it's because of what we get to see. But what typically drives people into our offices is they hurt or they have a problem, right? Because that's what most people go to healthcare practitioners of any kind is, I got me sicky, you fixy, like help.
Yeah.
Or they were referred by somebody that says like, if you're not doing this, you got to be doing, you got to get here. Either way, when they come through the door, whether they're well and they want to shine even brighter, or they are not well and they want to get well, we just start, or where are you at? Like tell us about your you know thoughts, traumas, toxins. How are you, body, mind, and soul? Or just taking an eagle view of, what are you coming here for? What's going on in you that you felt called to come into this journey? So we take a history and we talk about what chiropractic is. First question I'm asking beyond history is, have you ever seen a chiropractor before? Because even if they have, they usually have a preconceived notion of what we do. And our office is just different. So from the get-go, we're having a nervous system conversation instead of a pain conversation, and we're just saying, okay, here's what we do approach wise, and we jump into testing once they clarify what their goal is. Because I do have a tendency, and I think a lot of practitioners do, we want health for people different than what they want. And so I
Yeah.
really have learned a lot over a decade plus of literally crawling inside the journey with people first. Why are you here? I want to hear you first. I want to process your story of what you need, because out of really good intent, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much more. I can help you with this and I can help you with that." But typically it's like the awakening that people have been going through the last, it's like you have to work the layers of healing. There's no fast track. It's a marathon. I don't think we ever arrive. I think it's a dance where, so we really just try and sit with them to get to know who they are, what brought them there, what do they want, and why did God bring them to my table today, is the internal question I'm asking myself.
Yeah. I wish you were I wish I was near you.
uh,
That's
you
that's
know
amazing.
we'll help you find some, and there are more and more, I mean, practitioners. So I'd love to help you find somebody.
Yeah. No, that's very I love that because you're really just helping them peel the layers. I always say that too. Like healing is like peeling like the layers of an onion. Like there's
Mhm.
no quick way to get here, right? I always now say it's Amazon Prime's fault that everyone thinks there's a
Right.
quick it's quick,
Well,
everything's quick.
and it's supply and demand. We just kept wanting, it's the consumption culture of like, just
Yeah,
gotta, maybe this will make me happy, maybe this. And it's like, we just are constantly seeking, and yet very few people actually know what they want, and
right.
so you
Yeah.
can't get there from here. And so you got to just slow back down. That's why, like I said, we just really like to start with we have an Insight CLA technology that measures HRV and the integrity and adaptability of the nervous system. And so we want to hear their words, and then we also want to match it with what's your body telling me. And
Oh
then,
wow.
with our chiropractic exam. So we kind of, it's history, it's the nervous system scan, it's the physical body exam. At this point, I've worked on thousands of people. I can read energy when it walks in the room. And so I'm going to
Yeah.
see and hear what you're telling me and what you're not telling me. And so, yeah, you're going to say, like, I have headaches and I have tension here. And I'm going to say, like, when's the last
Yeah.
time you had a good night's sleep? Like, what's going on with the baby? So you meet them at the conversation they're ready to have.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like too sometimes a lot of these people, it might not be for like everyone, but they feel like maybe because they've been going to, doctors that kind of judge them or belittle them when they're telling them how they're exactly feeling, that they feel like they kind of try to cover or like, mask the truth and not
Yeah.
say everything because they don't want to get judged or
Totally.
right.
Totally. Well, and there's both ends of that spectrum too, because there's the people who downplay it because their story's been downplayed for so long, right? Back to when we're a little kid and it's like, rub some dirt on it, you're fine. um you know so there's the people that downplay, but then there's also the opposite problem, which I think is maybe even harder, which is the attachment to the story. The label has become their identity.
Mhm.
Instead of this situational thing that they're healing through, it's become this island that they're living on. That's a big problem, and we're identifying with these labels.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure you can get out of the cage if you start to call the cage home. And so people, that's, I think, becoming more and more common as well.
Yeah. And especially now too that there's, you know, I I'm in the functional medicine space and with all these lab tests and some people that just kind of seems like they're like, "Oh, I'm going to do this lab test and I'm going to do this lab test next." And then they get so consumed with like, "Oh, my symptoms, my symptoms, my symptoms." And then they're calling it my symptoms and
Exactly.
basically labeling
Yeah.
themselves like you said. And then they're having a harder time healing because they're basically just calling their bodies broken.
And we seek this rationalization of what's going on, instead of a surrender to just accept it, to
Yeah.
just go, like, man. And that's where I think one of my gifts is the tough love approach of, okay, well, your life had you on a train track trajectory that led you to this problem, whether it's back pain, headaches, constipation, cancer. Throw it in here. You're here because of the life you've been living. Do you want off that track?
Yeah.
And are you willing to do the work to do it? Because I can do the work when you come here, and I'm going to give you 150% of my hands, my heart, my voice, my knowledge to get you the results you're after. But I can't eat for you, I can't sleep for you, and I can't let go of these stories for you. If you identify as this person instead of a well person, you're going to stay here. And there's nothing I or anybody else can do to shift that for you. And so there's just like you said, an onion. And you can't have that conversation at day one with most people, right?
Yeah.
Like, that comes later as you start to um meet them in the middle of where they're at.
Yeah, true. I know. It's a tough conversation to have, I'm sure, with, with them, because sometimes, like you said, they're just like stuck in that mindset that
Mhm.
this is me, this isn't,
Yep.
am I ever going to heal, and all that stuff.
Well, and I think there should be an expectation on the doctor to show up. There
Yeah.
should be an expectation for me to deliver really good chiropractic care, really good acupuncture care, really solid. Like if you're hiring me to be XYZ, I should do due diligence in the expectation. I think there's an over expectation of what the doctor can do and an under expectation of what they need to do in order to participate, right? And it's hard now because it's not what we grew up in. We grew up in a white coat, you go to the doctor fixes you and you move on, and and even bigger than that, because I'd go back to the Dr. Quinn medicine woman days. Like I love that doctor who, helps you in a much different capacity, but now with, big pharma's, you know, intertwining into every layer of healthcare.
Hmm.
Man, it's just a very sick system that's
Yeah.
creating dependency and addiction and attachment. And I don't know, it's like trendy to be sick almost for some
Yeah.
people, to have a problem. And now, you see, to your point, you said something about my this, my that. I'm seeing that younger and younger. So when I see a young child telling me, well, my asthma, my anxiety, my depression, it's like, oh boy, like how do you get out of there if since you're 7, 10, 12, 15 years old you tell yourself that that's who you are? Well, your cells can hear you, and that's a major problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And the problem too is big pharma is so good at their, like, we're bombarded with their commercials when you're watching TV. My
Mhm.
husband loves to watch the news, and sometimes I sit with him and I'm just like counting all the commercials, and we
Yeah,
just look at each other. I'm like, how do they come up with these names? Like,
yeah.
it's even so hard to pronounce, and it's like they're basically telling these people to self-diagnose themselves. It's
Mhm.
insane.
Yeah, and I think those worry me on the conscious mind. I don't know that I've really met very many people, regardless of how they feel about this type of thing, who think that that's not crazy that we have those commercials. They're all like, God, what are these? So consciously, I think we know that. What worries me in the subconscious side is it just normalizes how sick our society is, and like
Yeah.
it's the subconscious programming of those commercials kind of constantly being there. And then, there's ones for every different vaccine and every different pill and every different diagnosis. And it just creates this culture of, well, this is how we are,
Yeah.
instead of you see a movement like Make America Healthy Again, and conversation of like, gosh, we're only like one of two countries that even lets those commercials play.
Hmm.
What if from leadership top down we said, no, we're not going to play those on the TV anymore, like, because that's not who we are. There's I hope a revival and a renaissance happening here where a different American dream is being born as we're moving forward again, where we say that's not who we are anymore.
Hmm.
And that's not going to serve us. Individually, we have the responsibility to turn the TV off.
Yeah.
But it would be refreshing to have leadership that's helping us. I definitely don't think there's a hero coming to save us. And I love saying the active prayer every day that leadership like that is possible. And I believe it is. So hopefully
Yeah.
it's coming.
I love that you said that. I also say that no one's coming to save us. And I know it's great though that, there's that movement, and it's kind of sort of stirring people's minds and opening up
Curiosity,
their eyes
right?
to like all the toxins we're exposed to. And it's beautiful because, that's kind of our mission. We want everyone to get healthy and
Mhm,
realize that they don't have to live a life of, you know, disease or illness, and not to just suffer their whole lives. Some people actually think that they are going to suffer, oh, this is my life now. I'm going to take 20 pills
mhm.
and I'm never going to get out of here. But
And
those are,
on a like consciousness, right? A collective scope. If I look at Chinese medicine, and we've all seen the yin and yang symbol,
mhm,
right? Like for its polarity. There's
yeah.
there's a balance, there's a harmony of both. And I think something that's hard for me to accept, being the way I'm wired, being the way you're wired, is that that's okay. It's part of our like, would I be as driven to do the work I'm doing if I didn't have the charge of the opposite, right? And it's,
Yeah.
will there ever be a world where there's no suffering? Probably not. I think that's part of, at least for me on a spiritual, when I'm talking like out here, it's, I think that's part of why we're here, is to interface with the highs and the lows and the life and the death and the hot and the cold. It's like, it's seeing their suffering just mirrors back to me what I don't want and makes me more clear about what I do want. And so I just think now more than ever, we have to have the discernment of like, what's not ours. It's not mine. If someone is choosing suffering, in my opinion, that's just not mine to judge, and it's not
Uh-huh.
mine to fix. And
Yeah.
I just think that's going to be part of our forward movement as well, of just letting people have the space to be on their walk.
Yeah. It has to be, they have to be on their own journey to
Yeah.
open their eyes and know that there's options out there, but you
Mhm.
can't force them to take the other road of healing, right? It's not our
No,
job.
and there's a lot of ego in that. You know,
Yeah.
when I look at a lot the spaces that I've been in the last few years, I can say like there's an addiction that starts to happen in all, to being right, to being holier than thou. Like, oh, well, I'm awake. You look at some of the language and it's very, you gotta be careful, man. Like, when you start thinking you've arrived, that's about the time you're going to get another test. And you'll realize real fast that there's someone sitting on the other side of the mountain you're trying to climb that's looking back at you with the same judging eyes as you have looking at, the people we might be talking about that are like, oh, why can't you see it? It's like there's always someone ahead and there's always somebody behind. And I think that just, that's the beauty. That's why we're here, is to like learn from one another, do our own work. But now more than ever, we see and hear so much more because of technology, that we just, man, it makes us so much more aware of the state of everybody's business, even if we don't need to know everybody's business.
Right. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of noise
A
on the
lot.
internet, and we have too much information at our fingertips, which we're not meant to have.
Right.
And that's why I see, I'm in mom groups, and a lot of people now are kind of complaining, or, saying something like, how do you avoid health anxiety? Because, there's so much different conflicting information. One time this thing is good for you, the next it's not.
Which, which I think goes back to something I think I have said, if not, when people are like, what do you do? I mean, I really do feel like I take people back home. I don't want you to trust me. I want you to trust you. I want you to know how to muscle test your energy, your child's energy. If they get a fever, I'm talking 104 crazy fever in the middle. So even if I take one of my really empowered moms, if you take a child with a really intense fever and they're hallucinating and they're crying and they're coughing, you're going to experience fear because your job is to protect that
Mhm.
child.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Like, I might not be able to get to you. How will you know if you need to go get help or if this is just the body's ability to process? My highest goal is that I can help you get there, that no matter what
Yeah.
saber-toothed tiger comes your way, you have an internal compass, that you're not trying, oh God, I wish I could call Dr. Devin. I have not done my job yet. If you rely on me to get to the well, right, where you're trying to get your confidence and trust from, that's, then I'm actually a barrier to your, true healing potential, not facilitating it. So I think, and I'm seeing more and more of that type of talk with practitioners too, that like, I don't do the healing, you do the
Yeah.
healing, like, and that's really refreshing.
But so what do you do? 'Cause you mentioned fever. My daughter used to have her, I don't know why, she just had this hard time. Her body had a hard time regulating fevers. Only
Mhm,
her, not my other kids. And
mhm.
so she's had two febrile
Mhm.
febrile seizures because the spike of the temperature. And the first time I was scared, and I made my husband call the 911, and because we were in Vegas at a hotel, and they just gave her Motrin and Tylenol.
Mhm. Mhm.
My God, why did I do this? But obviously I regretted that. But I was just so scared because it was like
Yeah.
3 in the morning.
Uh,
My husband had just come
and
back from poker.
your fear is purposeful. That
Yeah.
fear mechanism, that's when fight or flight is meant to kick in. That is when, when my son fell from 10 feet, and I went into we go into this heightened protective,
Mhm.
and fear is driving us. But can you still think clearly is the key,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yes.
that takes you to let the fear drive you, but not control you. And so, specifically with fever, that there's lots of different literature out there that says like a
Yeah.
specific temperature, and that I don't even own a thermometer
Yeah.
myself. Um, I let them run. I let them ache. The thing that I'll always tell parents is if it stops looking like your child, if they won't eat or not really eat, but if they won't drink, if they won't wake up, if they're listless, if there's a seizure. One of my twins, so I have two sets of twins. I have twin 8-year olds, twin 13-year olds, and then my oldest just turned 20. But so I've been in the game a little while with momming. But one of my 8-year olds had a series of fever or febrile seizures, and it's scary. It's really intense.
Yeah.
And I turned to my village at that point because I couldn't see objectively. And my couple of my chiropractic colleagues are like, videotape it, see how long it lasts, like,
Yeah.
get help. Obviously, trust your intuition if you need, just like you did, because you're never going to regret getting an extra set of eyes on it in that moment if you feel like you need it. And then I had another, friend of mine who does all kinds of German new medicine. She's trained in acupuncture, all different kinds of things. And she's like, it's his upgrade. She's like, what if you didn't look at it through fear's eyes and you just looked at it and you trusted the process that like things were warming? Like if I didn't attach the label of febrile seizure to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? What if I
Yeah.
didn't know that term? And she was like, is he safe when you see him? Anyway, that was my walk, and she was like, and she called me to look at what was going on with me. And at that time I was processing the death of my mom, and he's the baby of the family. So she actually worked on me and everything cleared out.
Yeah.
So I always, if babies tune off of their mothers, depending on the age of the child, I'm not just looking to clear the child. I'm looking at what's going on with mom because they're anchored to you. And that changed everything for me because he'd had a couple, and the second that she started working through me, like everything went away.
That's amazing. I know a lot of times nowadays there's so many kids that suffer. I'm gonna kind of go off a tangent, like from
Mhm.
constipation.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah. They call me the poop doctor. That's like
yeah.
Dr. Devin, the poop doctor is one of the like key nicknames around here. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's amazing because that's what happened with my daughter.
Mhm.
What I would notice that she was withholding her poops. Like she would
Mhm.
literally walk around in tiptoes, and we
Yeah.
thought she was pooping, and I'm like, why is there no poop? And then eventually when she couldn't hold it in, she would just have this gigantic poops of different
Mhm.
colors. I'm like, oh, she's holding in her poop. And then, that was like the first, well, it was the second time when she had the seizure where she was holding her poop. The first one, I think she had food poisoning. I'm not sure. But with the second one, she was older. She just turned 3, but then I just also had a baby. Like it was
Mhm.
3 days after the baby was born. She wasn't pooping, and I'm like, why aren't you pooping? You're gonna get sick. I
Mhm.
just knew where it was going. And then her fever came down. So I was like, okay, we're in the clear.
Mhm.
And then we were eating dinner, and then in the next room, all of a sudden, I just hear her wake up from her nap, and we heard this shriek, and she
Mhm.
fell on the floor, and then she had a seizure. And it's more scary to look at it when they're bigger, right? Because I'm just like,
Mhm.
I told my husband, like, just time it, like, make sure she's not anywhere that she's gonna hit her head or anything like that. But yeah, it was scary that second time too, because my husband was there and he also got so scared
Yeah.
because he said that once she got out of the seizure, like she kind of like looked at him and like she
Blank.
didn't remember. Yeah, she was blank and she kind of like didn't even remember
Yeah.
what happened. But yeah, he was very
Because
scared.
their brains need a minute to come back online,
Yeah,
and so,
yeah,
you have to hold yourself through that panic, and that's why I say, like, it's to somebody listening, it's like, it's never there's no judgment if you feel like you need somebody to,
hmm,
check out the situation, and once you've lived through it once or twice, then you start to go, "Okay, I'm watching you," and, like, "Are you coming back online?" Like, "And how long
yeah,
did it take you to come back online?" And, there's lots of different, protocols for, helping a baby child through those things. But poop's a big thing, right? Like, this
yeah.
is and that there's a yeah, I mean, that's a whole honestly, probably another topic because the world
Right.
is so literally full of crap. Literally, we're all so
Literally. Yeah,
and if we got through that one thing, we would make the world healthier, right?
yeah,
If people just if their drainage pathways were open, if they were pooping regularly, if they're sweating regularly, we live in a toxic world and we don't move enough, we don't sweat enough. And that goes for our kids too, so that
mhm,
it all mounts up and then you hit a certain load and they're going to express these types of symptoms. But I'm glad you were able to field it differently. And moms and dads typically have different innate responses, and you work together to get through that.
no, the reason why I mentioned constipation because I'm working with this mom right now. Her 1-year old, she's saying, is very constipated, and so he doesn't breastfeed anymore. But she still gives the kid her breast milk, and now I'm like, maybe I told her, I think we need to work on you as well because kids mirror their parents a lot. And, like if you're still giving your breast milk to him, then whatever you're
Mhm.
eating is going to be affecting um, their digestion. But she's already eating a very limited diet. So it's kind of like, I'm like, man, I should pass this on to someone who's more like kind of no, maybe the German medicine. I forgot about that. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by that.
Well, and with adjustments, our whole you look at chiropractic, and that's why if you're constipated and you haven't tried chiropractic or your child is, I
Yeah,
highly recommend it because it's, you look at the switchboard in the house and there's usually a disconnect where, from the power source to where you want the lights to be on. And sometimes you flip a switch, you adjust
yeah,
the spine, and the brain and body communicate better. It creates more ease in the tone of the nervous system. Their autonomic nervous system kicks in, then they can rest, digest, and poop instead of being in this state. And with kids, I mean, every day we have, a baby poop while they're in here getting adjusted, while the child's like, oh man, we had to take them to poop before we even left because they get adjusted and so that's always one that
yeah,
I highly recommend
yeah,
parents check out.
yeah, yeah. My kid, that's every time 30 within 30 minutes poop. I'm like, but what? There's also I know there's other kids that I don't know why we recommend chiropractic and they're like, well, it worked for a little bit and then she's still not going every day. So, but does it have to be? What would you recommend for those? Like, do it every week or maybe more a week?
It kind of depends on the family. I mean, that's one of the questions we get all the time. I think with, we base off of where does stress in the nervous system come from? It comes from thoughts, traumas, and toxins. So emotional stressors, mental stress, physical traumas, and then different like toxins. And you get too much stress in the system, things don't work right. So now more than ever, and this goes for kids and families of all sorts, there's more stress than ever. We're just more busy than we've ever been. There's more chaos in the world. You get to the holiday season, stress goes way up. um, and when stress goes up, adaptability takes a hit, and sometimes it goes down and can't function. So I will get checked at least once a week
Okay.
till I'm not on planet Earth, because that's not because things are wrong, but
Yeah.
because it keeps me in the best condition. I want my nervous system to have the best ability to handle whatever comes my way. So I recommend that. That's what I
Yeah.
mean. My kids, my family, we live by at least once a week.
Yeah.
In busier seasons, if I'm doing more, like today, I had, multiple podcasts that I'm on and that I'm hosting, and that's a lot of bandwidth. So if I don't get adjusted on a day like today, I know I'm not as bright. So
Yeah.
I don't just do it because something's wrong. I want to be as on as I possibly can be. So that's
Yeah.
minimum. And then, but we've got a lot of families who do a lot of other therapies and things, and they work out and they eat really well. And we have that discussion, and they're like, our family unit does really well at every other week, at every 3 weeks, like whatever it is. And it's like, I'm
Yeah.
not going to, push. I will be here. And so the door's always open, and your child's probably going to tell you, hey, we need to go see Dr. Devin. Or, again, that part of going back home is like, let's try it. You want to try and go a month? Let's go a month and see what happens. But some of that comes down to goals.
Yeah.
I can't want it for you. If you want to just maintain instead of optimize, I'm
Yeah.
not going to try and sell you on something like that you don't want.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it depends on the goal. Speaking of, my daughter has been asking me to take her to the chiropractor, so I guess I should do that.
Kids know, man. What I love working with kids is they're so in tune. They know things that we
Yeah.
forgot.
But okay, now let's go off another tangent. Let's talk about the big idea
Yeah.
because I only got a gist of what it is about. So why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah. So my practice is the Lighthouse chiropractic office, and in 2016, my practice was the most successful it had ever been, and I was kind of going about life and started traveling and speaking. Life was really good, and then my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and she passed a few weeks after that, and I was pregnant with my second set of twins at the time. So in 2016, she passed in January. Multiple other things happened that year, and then I had a beautiful birth with my daughter, and then a emergency C-section with her twin brother. And so 2016 was a year that just probably could have and maybe did kill me in some ways so that I could, be where I'm at today, I guess. But out of that came, out of what happened with my mom and out of what happened with my birth, I just got this insatiable, like, I'm not doing enough. Like, I need to show up for people more. Like, what if my mom had heard, some of these speakers that I was hearing when I went to different events? What if my mom would have, like, what if I was a better chiropractor for her? What if I, like, there was just this haunting that kind of started to happen. And out of that came I went to my husband. I said, I want to host an event at our house and just invite our patients from our practices to come, and we'll bring speakers from all over the country and some of our really good friends, and we'll put up a tent in our backyard. So that's what we did. The very first year we put up a tent in our backyard. We had 350 people, dozen speakers, and I was just going to do it one time. It was just going to be the big idea, kind of like my medicine to reconcile the pain of losing my mom, and that thing that I was trying, that itch I was trying to scratch. And it was so beautiful. I mean, the feedback was out of this world. So we are back after one of those really fun technology glitches. Not totally sure where I cut off with Big Idea, but basically, I decided to do this thing at our house. My husband said yes. We had 300 people, and the takeaways from that event, that in-person gathering that we had, were out of this world. I mean, I honestly, I still have to pinch myself. It was so beautiful and transformative for some of our patients, our friends, our family. And I had multiple friends come up and go, well, when is it next year? And I looked at my husband. He's like, gosh, she's going to want to do this every year. And so that was 2018. And each year we've done something. So we did a follow-up in 2019. In 2020, I worked with a group of local moms and freedom fighters. We did something called the Freedom Revival. And we had 900 people during lockdown. We had Bobby Kennedy, Del Bigtree, Andy Wakefield, and there were shoulder to shoulder hugs, no masks. The sheriffs were
Yeah.
protecting us, at the door. It was amazing. It was next level. So that was what we did in 2020. Then we had another one in 2021 and 22. And last year I did one, the big idea for her. So we did women only, and it was amazing. I feel like it's become this event that it calls, I answer. And so I'm just rolling with it. So this year we are doing it a little different because there's so much going on. I decided to do online. Winter has always felt like this season of cocoon. And so December 11th through the 13th, we'll have 3 days of, over 30 speakers and presentations and workshops and stories, tips, tools, all different disciplines. Dr. Zach Bush, Dr. Kelly Brogan, Troy Casey, a lot of names that I'm sure people have heard, some that they haven't. So we'll be, that it's free to register. I just want to put it out there, right? And invite as many of us to come together and declare that, this next year we're going to do the work, because there is an abundance of information, and it's time for doing. It's time for action. It's inside out. So heal myself, heal my kids, heal my home, heal the world, right? And so it'll be virtual, and then next year we'll do an in-person playground. So I'm excited, just a little bit.
That sounds exciting. And December 13th is my birthday. So I'm definitely going to sign up for that. Yeah. Yeah. Friday. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lucky one. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but when is the live event happening? And I know you said in the spring. Do you have a date yet or no?
Well, we'll do April. I love that. I think people will kind of come out of their, we're heading into spring. Yeah. You mentioned I'm a mama bear. I told you guys I got 5 kids, and my boys are wrestlers. They're all, my twin 13-year-olds are state champs, and the championships are always running in March. And so April is when I get to do my big idea stuff again after I'm, my kiddos first. So it'll be the first week in April here in Wichita. Lots of experiences. So this one in particular, I just feel really called to disrupt the way we do events. And historically, we have speakers come up and do a TED Talk, which I love. It's good. But again, I want people to feel something. So each workshop will be breath, it will be food, it will be meditation, it will be muscle testing, it will be some sort of playground and immersion that the attendees are an active participant instead of just a lot of talking.
Yeah, I love that, because sometimes we get information overload and we forget to do the implementation. And I love that. All right. Well, thank you so much for. Yeah, true. But do you have to go? You have to go.
It is time. All right. I think. Yes.
I feel sad.
If I get to come back and I know. That's the beauty of technology, right? It allows us to teleport to each other, and that's why I like podcasts and things. So, hit me up, and who knows what's going to come in these next few weeks, let alone the next few months. It'll be a whole different world the next time you and I connect.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And everything about Dr. Devin, all her events will be in the show notes as well. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please click the subscribe button, share it with others, post about it in social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me or suggest topics, you can follow me on Instagram at Fatima Pagtakan or at The Wellness Rebel Show. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.